The real retirement nightmare is not having no money at all. It is having enough that you should feel safe, but not enough confidence in your income plan to actually relax. It is waking up with assets on paper and anxiety in your chest. It is watching the market dip and suddenly wondering if dinner, travel, healthcare, and the rest of your life are now connected to a chart you cannot control. That is the fear most people do not talk about clearly enough. They say they want retirement income, but what they really mean is they want income that does not make them feel fragile. That is why this subject matters so much. A lot of people spend decades focusing on one big retirement question. How much do I need to save? But once retirement gets close, or once it begins, another question quietly takes over, and it is often much heavier. How do I actually live on this money without second-guessing every withdrawal, every market move, every expense, and every year ahead? That question is more emotional, more practical, and more personal than most people expect. My name is Matthew, and I spend way too much time thinking about retirement planning, income strategy, and the psychological patterns that decide whether people experience retirement as freedom or as a slow, exhausting form of financial tension. And here's the part most people miss until the pressure becomes real. Retirement income is not just a math problem. It is also a nervous system problem. It is not enough for the numbers to be technically possible. The structure has to be livable. It has to let you sleep. It has to protect you from panic during volatility. It has to make sense on an ordinary Tuesday, not just in a spreadsheet. Because a retirement plan that looks clever but keeps you stressed is not really doing its job. That is the challenge. Most people were taught how to think about accumulation, not decumulation. They heard about saving, investing, growth, long-term returns, and rough retirement targets. But they were not really taught how to turn assets into income in a way that feels calm, sustainable, and human. So when retirement gets close, they often do one of two things. They become too aggressive because they fear running out of money, or too cautious because they fear losing what they built. One creates stress through volatility. The other creates stress through erosion. Before we go any deeper, write this in the comments. One retirement income habit I want to improve. Keep it simple and honest. Maybe it is know my real monthly number, build more cash reserves, simplify my accounts, lower my fixed costs, or stop guessing about withdrawals. There is a reason to write it down. The moment a vague concern becomes a clear sentence, it becomes more concrete. Your brain stops treating it like background noise and starts treating it like something real. And when something becomes real, the chance that you actually act on it goes up. The first thing you need to understand is that low-stress retirement income does not come from one giant answer. It comes from layers. People often imagine retirement income as one number, one account, one drawdown strategy, one solution that has to carry everything. But that is exactly what makes the whole experience feel fragile. The more your life depends on one source, the more emotionally dangerous that source becomes. A stronger retirement income system usually has multiple supports. Social security, maybe a pension, maybe investment withdrawals, maybe a cash reserve, maybe part-time or consulting income for a few years, maybe lower living costs because the home is paid off or downsized. The exact mix changes from person to person, but the principle stays the same. Stress goes down when your life is not standing on one leg. Think about how different it feels to know that a meaningful portion of your essentials is covered by predictable income, compared to a situation where every bill is mentally tied to portfolio performance. Those are two very different emotional experiences. In one case, the retiree feels supported. In the other case, they feel exposed. That emotional difference matters more than many financial discussions admit. The second thing you need to understand is that retirement income stress is often caused by unclear spending, not only unclear investing. A lot of people obsess over the portfolio, but stay vague about what their life actually costs. They have estimates, assumptions, and feelings, but not enough clarity to build a truly grounded income plan. That creates a problem immediately, because if you do not know what your life requires, then every withdrawal strategy feels abstract. Every projection feels uncertain. Every market dip feels scarier. Sometimes people think they have an income problem when what they really have is a clarity problem. They do not yet know what part of their spending is essential, what part is flexible, what part is emotional habit, and what part can change without damaging quality of life. So one of the strongest things you can do is build an honest monthly picture. Not the fantasy version, the real version. Housing, food, utilities, transportation, insurance, healthcare, taxes, family support, hobbies, travel, maintenance, and all the little things that make a life feel like your life. Then separate those into categories. Essentials, important but adjustable. Optional. That one move can change how retirement income feels because it tells you what must be protected and what can flex. The third thing you need to understand is that fixed costs are one of the loudest sources of retirement stress. A lot of people focus on returns, balances, and investment questions while ignoring the fact that the monthly structure of their life may be too heavy. And when fixed costs are high, even a solid retirement plan can feel unstable. A heavy mortgage, car payments, debt, high insurance premiums, a house that demands constant repairs, recurring obligations that became invisible through repetition. These things matter because they reduce flexibility. They create pressure before the month even begins. They turn retirement into a treadmill that still requires a lot of financial force just to keep moving. This is why two people with similar asset levels can have completely different retirement experiences. One has lower fixed costs, more flexibility, and more room to adjust. The other has a bigger lifestyle burden and far less margin. Sometimes the best way to create stronger retirement income is not by squeezing more performance from assets. It is by lowering the amount those assets are required to produce. The fourth thing you need to understand is that cash reserves are not just financially useful. They're emotionally stabilizing. Cash is not exciting, but in retirement, it can become a psychological shock absorber. When markets fall, the presence or absence of a cash reserve changes the emotional meaning of the decline. Without a cash buffer, a downturn can feel like a direct threat to next month's living expenses. With a cash buffer, the same downturn can feel unpleasant, but not immediately dangerous. That distinction matters because people make very different decisions when they feel cornered. A well-structured cash reserve gives you time. Time not to sell under pressure. Time not to panic. Time not to let short-term fear rewrite a long-term plan. And time is incredibly valuable in retirement because the emotional cost of volatility is often higher during withdrawal years than during accumulation years. The fifth thing you need to understand is that your retirement income plan must fit your real personality, not just a theoretical ideal. You can build a strategy that looks efficient on paper, but if it constantly clashes with your emotional wiring, it will feel stressful no matter how optimal it appears. If you know you will check your balances too often, feel intense discomfort during volatility, or lose sleep when withdrawals feel exposed to market risk, then a highly aggressive approach may not be the right fit for you. And if you know you are so fear-driven that you may hide almost everything in low-growth assets and then suffer quietly as inflation weakens your spending power, that matters too. This is why retirement income planning has to account for behavior. What kind of structure helps you stay calm enough to make rational decisions? What level of variability can you genuinely tolerate? What level of predictability helps you feel secure? These are not soft questions. They are critical questions. Because when a plan fights your temperament too much, stress goes up and decision quality goes down. The sixth thing you need to understand is the power of separating baseline income from lifestyle income. Baseline income is the layer that covers the essentials of life: housing, food, utilities, transportation, core healthcare, minimum bills, and the things that protect basic stability. Lifestyle income is everything above that. More travel, more dining out, more hobbies, more generosity, more comfort. When retirees blur those two layers together, every fluctuation starts to feel like a threat to the whole life. But when they clearly separate them, the emotional structure changes. If the baseline is covered, then a rougher year does not immediately mean danger. It may mean adjusting the lifestyle layer for a season. That is very different psychologically from feeling that everything is under attack. This is not about stripping joy from retirement. It is about building emotional hierarchy into the plan. First, protect what keeps life stable. Then decide how much flexibility exists around the rest. Once you do that, decisions feel less dramatic. The seventh thing you need to understand is that retirement income should be designed for real life, not for smooth averages. The numbers may suggest that a certain return or withdrawal range is fine over the long run, but living through that path month by month can be emotionally brutal if the structure is too exposed. Real retirees do not experience averages. They experience sequence. They experience the first down market, the first unexpected healthcare bill, the first year inflation bites harder than expected, the first moment they wonder whether they're spending too much. Those moments matter because they shape confidence. And once confidence drops, stress rises quickly. So a low-stress income plan has to be strong enough to survive real sequences, not just attractive average outcomes. That is why buffers matter. Flexible spending matters. Layered income matters. Simplicity matters. Emotional fit matters. If this is helping you rethink retirement in a more grounded way, subscribe here in the middle of the video. That simple click helps this channel keep making practical, honest finance content that actually helps people live better with money, not just think about money more. The eighth thing you need to understand is that predictable income has enormous calming power when used correctly. Social Security, pensions, and in some cases, other guaranteed income streams can dramatically lower retirement stress because they reduce the amount of life that has to be funded through constant withdrawal decisions. But the key phrase there is used correctly. Predictable income should support the plan, not excuse a weak plan. If your lifestyle is far above what those income streams can support, they may still feel inadequate. So the goal is not simply to say, I have guaranteed income. The goal is to know exactly what portion of your essential life that income covers and how the rest of the system supports it. That kind of clarity changes the emotional experience of retirement. If you know that your food, housing basics, utilities, and minimum living costs are substantially covered by dependable sources, your whole relationship with the rest of the portfolio improves. Down years become easier to live through. Market volatility becomes less personal. The ninth thing you need to understand is that retirement income stress often comes from maximum thinking. People keep asking maximum questions. What is the maximum I can withdraw? The maximum return I can chase? The maximum lifestyle I can keep? And while those questions sound smart, they often create fragile answers. Low-stress retirement planning is usually built around enough, not maximum. Enough income to live well. Enough growth to protect the future. Enough flexibility to absorb shocks. Enough liquidity to avoid forced bad decisions. Enough simplicity to keep the system understandable. Enough margins that fear does not dominate the day. Maximum thinking may look sophisticated, but it often creates minimum peace. A plan built right at the edge may work in theory, but it can feel terrible in practice. Every surprise matters more. Every downer hurts more. Every change feels more threatening. The goal is not to squeeze everything possible from the money. The goal is to create a life the money can carry without constant tension. The 10th thing you need to understand is that spending flexibility is one of the strongest forms of retirement insurance. If you know in advance which parts of your life can bend without breaking, then bad years lose some of their emotional power. Maybe travel scales back during rougher periods. Maybe dining out changes. Maybe home upgrades wait. Maybe discretionary spending pauses. The important thing is not whether you want to cut those things. It is knowing ahead of time that they are adjustable. Because when you know where flexibility lives, uncertainty feels less dangerous. The opposite is also true. If your lifestyle has no give in it, everything feels more threatening. A market decline is not just a market decline. It becomes a threat to identity, comfort, and normalcy all at once. Flexibility prevents that by building breathing room into the structure of life itself. The 11th thing you need to understand is that too much complexity creates hidden stress. A retirement plan can be technically sound and still feel terrible if it is too hard to understand, too hard to manage, or too hard to trust. Too many accounts, too many withdrawal rules, Too many moving pieces, too many timing decisions, too many tax questions. That kind of complexity creates decision fatigue, and decision fatigue turns money into a constant background burden. This is why simplicity is not something to dismiss. In retirement, simplicity can be a source of genuine emotional relief. A simpler plan is often easier to review, easier to explain, easier to stick with, and less likely to trigger constant second-guessing. The 12th thing you need to understand is that withdrawing money can feel emotionally wrong at first, even when it is financially correct. During the accumulation years, everything points in one direction: build, save, invest, grow. Then retirement arrives, and the direction changes. Now the money is supposed to support life. Withdrawals are no longer a sign of failure. They're the job of the money. But emotionally, many people do not adapt instantly. They still feel a jolt every time the balance goes down. They still feel like they're using it up, even when the withdrawals were planned and sustainable. That discomfort matters because if it is not acknowledged, it can distort behavior. People may underspend and live more fearfully than necessary. Or they may obsess over every market move because every withdrawal feels like a threat. The shift that needs to happen is internal. The money is not being wasted. It is doing what it was built to do. But for that to feel calm, the plan has to be trustworthy. The structure has to be strong enough that the retiree believes the system is working, not crumbling. Now here is the deeper revelation that ties all of this together. Creating retirement income without constant stress is not about finding one perfect formula. It is about making your financial structure and your emotional reality stop fighting each other. The strongest retirement income plan is not necessarily the one with the highest theoretical output. It is the one that funds life in a way your mind, your habits, and your real tolerance for uncertainty can actually live with. That means enough predictability to calm the essentials, enough flexibility to adjust when life changes, enough liquidity to avoid panic, enough simplicity to reduce decision fatigue, enough growth to protect the future, enough honesty to know what your life really costs, enough self-awareness to admit how you actually behave under stress, not how you wish you behaved in theory. And when those pieces come together, money becomes quieter. It does not disappear from life, but it stops sitting in the center of every thought. The plan starts supporting life instead of demanding constant emotional maintenance. That is the real goal, not just income. Income that creates steadiness. Because what people want in retirement is not merely survival. It is not merely a technically acceptable withdrawal rate. What they want is the feeling that life can finally be lived without every decision being shadowed by financial fear. They want to enjoy a normal meal, a normal trip, a normal month without mentally carrying the whole retirement structure every minute. That kind of peace does not come from pretending risk disappears. It comes from designing the plan so risk does not feel like a daily emergency. Lower fixed costs, clear spending categories, layered income, cash reserves, simpler systems, more predictable coverage of essentials, flexible discretionary spending, realistic expectations. These things are not flashy, but they're deeply powerful because they reduce unnecessary fragility. So if you want retirement income without constant stress, stop chasing only the smartest-looking plan. Start building the most livable one, the one that respects both the numbers and the human being living inside them, the one that lets you trust your system enough to stop interrogating it every day, the one that creates not just cash flow, but breathing room. If this helped you see retirement income more clearly, subscribe, keep learning about money and long-term financial growth with the channel, and share this with someone who is saving for retirement or already retired but still carrying more financial tension than they should. And if you want the next step after this, watch the related video on retirement planning after 50 and what matters most now, because it connects directly to today's topic and shows how to build the kind of foundation that makes low-stress income possible in the first place.